Hello, I'm Ciaran Jenkins. I'm the Scotland correspondent for Channel 4 News, which means whenever there's a story about Scotland on the news on Channel 4, it's usually me that you see on your screens.
What could I as an individual do to help stop the spread of fake news?
Well, there's lots of things you can do to stop the spread of fake news. The number one thing is not to share any fake news. But I suppose you've got to know if it's fake news in the first place before you know not to share it. So a couple of things you can do. One is to read the article first before you share it so that you've digested it and you can see what it's about and you can identify if there's any red flags there, anything that makes you think that it might be fake news. And also check out where the article or the video is from. Does it look suspicious? Is it a new news organisation you haven't heard of? Does anything look fishy about it? Is it from a trusted source, something like the BBC or Sky, ITV, or even Channel 4 News? Chances are if it's something weird that you haven't seen before, there might be something strange about it. So check it out before you share it, and any doubts, don't share it at all.
Have you ever fallen for fake news yourself?
Have I ever fallen for fake news myself? Well, that's a really good question because a lot of fake news is really clever, isn't it? The way they put it together, and it's trying to draw you in and convince you that it's actually real. And I think in the early days when we weren't quite sure what fake news was, I probably did fall for fake news myself. It's really tempting to want to believe something that sounds like an extraordinary story, something that's really implausible or extraordinary. So yes, I think I probably did, but I also quickly started to learn what fake news looked like and how dangerous it was, so be careful.
How do you make sure you have a range of different views in a news report?
Well, it's very important when you're reporting news to make sure that you reflect a wide range of views about the subject you're reporting on, to make sure the news is balanced and to make sure it's fair. How do I ensure this? Well, there are some rules out there that make sure that broadcasters are doing the right thing, and I'm supposed to be aware of them. That's my job. But the main thing I do is I ask myself questions. As I go along, I say, does this sound fair? What might people think about this? Is there someone who has a different point of view? And if you ask yourself questions when you're putting together a news report, it keeps you on your toes and makes sure that everything is right and proper.
What is the biggest story you have ever broken?
Well, I really enjoy breaking stories. That's why I became a journalist. I think it's a journalist's job to tell people something that they didn't already know. And I've had quite a few big stories over the years on lots of different subjects in lots of different parts of the UK and the world. What's the biggest story I've ever broken? I'm not sure there's one in particular, but I really enjoyed doing a story about sporting goods in a very famous shop and about the way that they treated the workers in the warehouse that was sending out the goods to people who buy online. And we sent undercover cameras in to see what was going on. And we got a very good story. They got lots of attention all around the UK. So that was one that I was really proud of.
How do you make your reports interesting without stretching the truth?
Well, the thing I found about reporting the news is you don't need to stretch the truth. You don't need to make believe or make things up because the news is incredible enough as it is. You just have to go out there and find the right story. And the most important part of the story is usually other people who've got things to say. And if you find people who've got interesting things to say, then you'll have a really good news story.
What would you say is the easiest and hardest part of your job?
People often ask, is the hardest part of being on the news or presenting the news talking live on TV? And actually, that's probably the easiest part because you just got to imagine you're talking to a member of your family or one of your friends, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. So that's actually quite an easy thing to do. The hardest thing to do is finding out stuff that people don't already know, because a lot of the time people want to keep that stuff quiet. So you have to do a lot of chatting to people, a lot of research, a lot of long days, and eventually you'll come across a story that other people don't know about and that you can reveal to the world. But that's the hardest thing.
How hard was it to get into the industry?
Now, a lot of people want to be journalists and they want to be news reporters, especially on TV, and there aren't enough jobs for everyone probably, so it isn't the easiest industry to get into. And the trick is to stand out from the crowd. So if you really want to be a news reporter, you should really go and try and find a news story, and then people might start paying attention to what you've got about you.
How do you stop your personal biases when reporting?
Well, this is an especially important question for journalists who are on the TV and the radio, because it is our job to be impartial, so you don't want any of your personal opinions to come into your news report. The best way you can do that is to challenge yourself always. Am I being fair? Am I being biased? And if you can answer that question, then you're doing the right thing. Of course, some journalists in other fields don't mind being a bit biased when they report. In other parts of the world, that's okay. But the gold standard of TV news is never to let your own opinions come into your reports. Well, thank you all very much for those excellent questions. They're really tough questions, some of those. I had to really think about what to tell you, but I hope you found them useful, and it would be lovely to see you in person sometime soon. Good luck. Ta-ra.